Hello everybody, this is SQL Dan and welcome to another episode where I analyze one of the questions on the Snowflake forums. Today we're going to look at a question that came in regarding the lag function and populating dates. And this particular user had created a table and he has years and weeks in his table and he'd like to populate it by using the lag function to read from the value above it. So, for example, here he put a seed value in for the first Monday of the year 2015 to match up with those dates, and then he wanted to use the lag function to populate it all the way down. Now, I'll put a link to this particular question in the information for this video, so if you'd like to go read all of the answers that had come in, you're welcome to go and do that. But basically, the short answer is that you really shouldn't use the lag function to populate the same column that it's referencing. So in any case here, the lag function only worked for one record, and then after that it was reading from nulls. So what I'd like to do is talk about a different way to accomplish what it is that this user wanted to do. So let's jump over to the queries now. And I've created a table that looks similar to the questions that he was asking, although I've only included two columns where in the question that he had some additional columns that really aren't relevant to the question. So I've created a table and then I've filled it with data here. Now he, as I mentioned here, let me populate the data. All right, so as I mentioned, he provided a seed value for the very first record, but we actually don't need that. So I didn't do that, and I left it blank. So what we have here is a table, and we have a report week, and then we have a null field, which is going to be the Monday that corresponds to that week. So say, for example, here, this 2015-01. This is going to be the first Monday of the year. And then there are 53 values. And then we get to the first Monday of 2016 and right on through. And I did 10 years worth of records. So this goes from 2015 all the way up to the year 2024, which is the current year. So that's kind of our starting point. And again, what I'd like to do is to derive the date based on the values in this report week field, as opposed to seeding it like he did and trying to read up to each one. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're just basically going to parse this out using a left and a right function so that we have a year and we have a week number, because those are all concatenated together. So I think that's pretty straightforward and doesn't require any additional explanation. The thing that probably will require a little explanation is a function called next day. And what next day does is that you provided a date, and then you provided a day of the week, and it will tell you when the very next time that day of the week will occur after the date that you provided. So say, for example, here, this on line 30, if I provided the first day of this year, which was January 1st, and say, when's the next time is it going to be Monday, it will return the 8th of January, tomorrow, okay, and say that's the next time that it will be Monday after the date that you provided me. So that's pretty close to what we want. However, that's not the very first Monday of this year, because the year started on a Monday, right? And next date does not ever return itself. It returns the next one after the date that you provided. So if we want to ensure that we'll get the first Monday of the year, even if the year starts on a Monday, we actually have to back up one day and always use December 31st of the prior year in order to get the first Monday of the year. So in this case, when I execute this query that's on line 28, we can see that the first Monday of this year was actually New Year's Day itself. So that's what we want to do, is for each of the years that are in that table, we want to come up with a way to get to December 31st of the year prior, and then use next day to return the first Monday of the year. And then after we do that, then we can add the requisite number of weeks to come up with the number for that week. So hopefully you're following along here. So the next function that we're going to need is a function called date from parts. And you can see here the date from parts takes 3 arguments. First of all, it takes a year, and then a month, and then a day. So if I call date from parts against 2023, 12, and 31, it will return New Year's Eve from 2023. Right, so I would like to be able to do that now with all of the years that are within the table. And so that's what I've done here on line 35. I'm using date from parts, and then I am using left, okay, and then 1231 to derive something that I'll just call, for now, I'll call the base date. And when I do that, we can see that it's returning 1231 of the year that I have here. The only thing that I've done wrong at this point is that I actually want 1231 of the year prior to this, right? So we need to subtract 1 from it in order to make that happen. And it actually will work if I just add a -1 to it like that. It will calculate correctly. So even though left 4 returns a string, right, the fact that I'm subtracting 1 from it, implicitly Snowflake will convert it to a number and then do the subtraction. But I generally don't like to rely on implicit conversions. So I'm going to go ahead and cast it as an integer and then subtract 1, just to be very explicit about what it is that I'm trying to accomplish. And so in this case now we can see that for every record in here for 2015, it has returned a base date of 12/31 of 2014. And if I scroll down deeper into the data, here's a record from 2016, and it's returned the 2015, 12/31, etc., right on down through the data set. Here we are in the year 2020, and we've got a base date of 2019. So that's working fantastically well. So let's move on to the next step now, which is to derive not the base date, but the first Monday of the year. So we are going to accomplish that. Let's take this part out real quick by, again, using the next day function. So what we have here, there's the base date that we just did, and then I've wrapped around it a next day. You see, there's that calculation, and then I say the next Monday. So what this is going to do is return the very next Monday after the New Year's Eve. And so in each of these cases, it will get us the first Monday of the year. So for example, it says in 2020, the first Monday was January 6th, and I actually have a calendar here ready to go so that we can validate that, and we'll just check a couple of them here. We can see indeed that the first Monday of January in 2020 was January 6th, and let's go ahead and scroll. Maybe we'll look at 2018. So in 2018, it says the first Monday was January 1st, much like this year. So let's check that one as well. Very good. Okay, so I think that piece is working as well. So we've gotten to the point that we can derive the first Monday of each year. So at this point, all we really need to do is use that right function that we had again to figure out which week each of these are. So I'm going to pull that down into my query and put it after the next day really quick. And let's run this one more time. We're basically one step away from having this thing work. Okay, And so what we need to do now is to come up with the Monday of each week is simply take the week number and multiply times 7 to add a certain number of days to it. The only thing that we need to do is we need to adjust the week number downward by 1 because we're already getting the very first Monday of the year, so we don't want to add 7 days to it. So what we want to do instead is we want to subtract 1. So here's my right function. Okay, I'm going to subtract 1 minus 1, and then I'm going to multiply that times 7. And because of order of operations, we want to make sure the subtraction happens before the multiplication. So we've got to put parentheses around there too. But what we'll see is that in each of these cases, we're now going to add to the first Monday of the year 0 days, 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, etc., right on through the year. And then when we get to the next one, we'll basically repeat that pattern. And because we're starting on a Monday already, you see that for each year it's doing the same thing, 0, 7, 14, etc. So all we need to do now is take that first Monday and then add to it the calculation that we just did here. So that's this. Okay, so we take that, we add that calculation here, and this will be the Monday of the week, right? Which is exactly what our original poster was trying to come up with. So when we do that, we have solved his problem without working on any sort of a lag function at all. So that's essentially the solution to the question. There's one more thing that we would probably like to take a quick look at, and that is that sometimes there are 52 Mondays in the year, and sometimes there are 53. And so we would want to go in, and let's just say where report week is like 53. So let's just look at all those records at the 53rd week of the year, because in the vast majority of them, it's actually going to be a record that we need to remove from our report table. So say, for example, the 53rd Monday in 2015 was actually in the next year, in 2016, right? So that's a record that we don't want. We only want to retain those records where the 53rd Monday falls in the same year. And in that case, in 2018, there were 53 Mondays. And as we scroll down, in 2024, there will be 53 Mondays. So all of those other ones where the year is not the same as the first 4 digits of the year, we would want to remove those records from the table. And that's essentially the solution to our problem. I'd like to thank you for joining me. If you have any comments on what I did or anything that you can see that I might have done better, I appreciate you to comment on it and let me know that. Again, I will put a link to this particular question in the comments to it, and I hope you'll join us again for the next time when we take a look at yet another question from the Snowflake forums. This is SQL Dan saying thanks for joining.